This is the Wealthy Retailer Podcast with your host, Dan Holman. Every episode, Dan talks with a variety of retail experts, owners, managers, and so much more, sharing their expertise, their experiences, and the retail topics that matter to you, the independent retailer. The Wealthy Retailer Podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. Learn more at retailbycrs.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast today. I am your host, Dan Holman. My guest today is what I like to refer to as a serial entrepreneur. Here's a guy that's a retailer, a retail coach, an entrepreneurial coach, and someone that I've been following for a long time, Pete Mohr, Shootopia, the coach. I mean, it's just a basket full of great stuff. Pete, welcome to the podcast this morning. Really, really glad to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's an absolute pleasure, Dan. I mean, we've like you said, we've been following each other and we're back and forth a little bit and all that stuff between Simplifying Entrepreneurship and Shootopia and all the different things that you're involved with. I think there's a lot of good synergies there. I'm looking forward to a pretty cool conversation today, Dan. Yeah.
And as I sort of alluded to in the pre-podcast chat, we don't have a set agenda. We're just going to let it roll and see where the conversation takes us. So let's start. Let's use sort of best year ever as our springboard.
Great.
A lot of retailers are certainly feeling the positive benefits of the pandemic, along with some challenge. We talked about some inventory challenges and a bit of disruption in flow, but we're seeing our best year ever. Why?
Well, for those that are listening in Canada here where we are, I think, in Ontario in particular, and I know it's been different out in Alberta and what have you, but in Ontario, we were closed for so many weeks, like literally 20 some weeks we were closed through all the pandemic and stuff. And those were at different times in different seasons. And a lot of retailers have seasonality to their business. I know in the footwear store, we certainly do from that perspective. And, our clients missed certain seasons. They literally missed them. And from that perspective, there was a lot of sort of pent up demand. We were wondering, is there going to be pent up demand, all this kind of stuff? And it's like, there was. And, people were coming in our shoe stores and buying multiples. They were buying not only what they needed because they missed the previous season, but they're looking ahead and saying, I should probably get something looking ahead in case this happens again. So we experienced some of that through as we reopened, that early portion, those first few months as we reopened and stayed open instead of been closed and open and closed and open. Right. And I think this idea now it's sort of leveled out that hopefully we don't have another closure again. But from that perspective, a lot of seasonal sort of demand there where people had missed and skipped and, they opened the closet again and it's like, oh my God, I don't have my coat. I don't have my hat. I don't have my mitts, my shoes, whatever the case is. And a lot of buying was need-based, not as much want-based. And I think it's like, I need what I need and I want something, as opposed to just, in Canada, we're pretty lucky. Most people can get what they want, for the most part. And, it was more of a case of need. People were coming in literally with holes in their boots and their shoes. And they're like, I couldn't get anything last year and nothing was available online and blah, 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 for whatever reason. And they're literally taking them off in the store saying, can you throw these out for me? I'm just going to wear my new ones out. So, a lot of that kind of stuff, a lot of interest for people to get back in stores. I mean, online shopping has certainly taken its boom. And as you talk a lot about on your podcast and all that sort of stuff, and we've experienced some of that growth, but, people want to come in. And I mean, that's the beauty of independent retail, right? We have the conversations, we see our friends, it's like, we know you, they know us, we're having this conversation. It's good to see you again. And by the way, I need some stuff and can you help me out? And works out pretty good.
Yeah. And I think, there is some, not just legitimacy, but some absolute requirement for people to want to get back into stores. We are a social being. And as great as the numbers look that come from, Shopify and Retail Council of Canada and how much money was spent online and, just as many people wanted to get back into stores, and we
For sure.
saw great traffic. And I think maybe one of the things that we've seen as maybe traffic doesn't get back to, those big numbers that we were maybe used to pre, 2020, early 20, we're seeing better conversion today. People are buying more with purpose, which allows our stores to perform a little bit better. So let me go back to our best year ever. And, being an entrepreneur, that our best year ever is the exact same as our worst year ever. It creates new challenge for us as entrepreneurs. It creates opportunity for us to grow and learn as we break through another ceiling. What challenges as an entrepreneurial leader have you had to overcome in the last 12 months as you've watched business regain momentum here?
There's always challenges for every leader. And what I like to do around and wrap around that sort of stuff is I try and allow myself the opportunity to control the controllables in a way so that I can deal with the uncontrollables more than the rest of my team. And when, allowing myself the opportunity, and what I mean by that is the things that I can actually delegate, I do. And the things that, all of those things that what I call sort of the business as usual, as much of that sort of stuff that I can take off of my plate, I already have, and I have systems and processes in place that allow that to happen where I'm really on the dashboard for the red flags on that. And I don't really need to know about the green and the yellow flags so much because I have accountabilities in place that allow that sort of stuff to happen with the rest of my awesome team. And from that side of things, I get to deal, whether you like that or not, but my life, it revolves around those things that are a little more uncontrollable and a little more sort of, at the moment, let's say, or things that my team doesn't have a system for, or that kind of stuff. And that's where I'm brought in, really. And when I'm brought in with my team, those are the kind of questions that are wrap all around that sort of stuff, Dan. And we to have the conversations and go through sort of the idea of what we need to do to morph through those different things. And there's been a lot of them in the last year because business isn't as usual anymore, and it has changed. So I've spent a lot of my leadership time working through the things that were, unusual that now are usual. So now we've put systems in place because that's the new usual, so that I don't have to do them again. And I'm back into this rotation of dealing with what's new. And that's how the sort of the organizational structure of how I like to run my business and how, the stuff that I work with for the people that I coach to, we try to sort of set that up. So, it allows you that opportunity to work on that stuff, Dan, that's sort of out of the normal, right? And when business as usual takes your entire day, you don't have time to do that. And it becomes even more frustration. We feel these pressures coming down from the top, up from the bottom, and from the sides, from our suppliers, from our team, from like all these pressures are compounding in. And, the biggest thing really there is to let go of the control, let go of the stuff that's controllable to somebody else to take the accountabilities and work from the leadership perspective on all those uncontrollables and help make them controllable. And when they're controllable, you're releasing again, and you have this system that allows you to, not be so frustrated, not be so tired, not be so worn out, which a lot of people are feeling because they're short staffed, they're short, all these different things that we hear over and over and over again. So, yeah.
So how did you transition from, early in 19 from being that retail entrepreneur into simplifying entrepreneurship? Like, how did that transition come about? Is it from, I'm asking the question and then asking another one, but did it come from, a decade of learning in your own business and really understanding how people and process, could impact the day to day and allow you to rise above and spend more time on than in that business as usual?
Yeah, I think, it starts with what you want out of life. And when we talk about best year ever, I'm doing a whole thing with Simplifying Entrepreneurship on my podcast about the best year ever too. And it starts with sort of, what do you want out of your life? And, I'm happy to share with any of your listeners here too. I've got a 1-page planner that I'm happy to share. It's free. It's just a download. We can put it in the links or whatever, but, starts with that. And when you're an entrepreneur, Dan, and I know you feel this because we all do, our businesses and our lives are tied together. They always are. People say balance and all this stuff. And yeah, there's balance, and we try to balance things, but there's seasonality around our lives and our businesses that don't allow balance, and understanding that you're not going to be able to balance every bucket of your life every day, every month, every year. And you just need to know how that ebbs and flows that allows you to kind of tie this stuff back in. So it all kind of starts there. So I know what I want. I know what I'm looking for out of my business. And over my 27 years of being a business owner, because I used to I used to own a service business. I was a business broker helping people buy and sell businesses. For the last 12 years, I've been a retailer as well. And I've got a couple of other things on the side. But, from that side of things, like I always kind of knew what I liked. I've got a pretty good business background. I've got a lot of experience behind me now. People always came to me, Dan, for saying like, hey, can we have a conversation about this? Or what do you think about this? Or all of that sort of stuff. And I decided that, when I look at my next future, as we're recording this, early December, and I'm looking at the next year and I'm saying, what do I want for my next year? Well, not only what do I want for my next year, but what do I want for my next 25 years? And my next 25 years, I want to have my retail operation running pretty much with clockwork, and it kind of does now. I don't have to be around all the time. I can leave. I'm going to take next week off, that kind of stuff. I mean, my business is running well, but I want to have it running clockwork. And if somebody leaves, or if I need to jump back in, am I ready to jump back in? Sure, I am. It's my business. It's not like I want to be completely gone or any of that sort of stuff. But nonetheless, it allows me the opportunity to have these conversations, Dan, and to have the conversations with my clients and to work through all that stuff, because I love business. And it's always been a big passion of mine around everything around business life, entrepreneurial life, all growing, everything business. And it's just such an interesting thing to me. So I've developed a lot of my own concepts. I test them and I try them in my own stores. And that's one of the things that's always a little bit frustrating to me is people that don't sort of operate other businesses and do other things, and so that they can actually use some of the things that they teach and coach to. So I really try and work through all of those things in my own businesses, carve out some of the stuff so that when I take them back and we talk about them and all that sort of stuff, it's like, hey, I've already done this and I've already put it through with some of my clients. And this is something that seems to have some legs to it,
I think I'm a little bit like that as well. I have a few different businesses.
Yeah, I know you do.
And I have this great fortune to work with a lot of really fabulous retailers. Yeah, and so cool. Even the things that I learn and I learn as much as I teach, I feel like, or coach.
Me too.
And I bring that back into my other businesses.
Yeah.
I take things that really work well in some of my retail business, and I take it back to the technology business.
For sure.
And I share that with the leadership team there.
Yeah.
And we have that ability to try, to fail, to, improve. And I love the idea of failing.
Yeah.
Because it allows us to really understand how to make something better. And that comes from our good ability to measure things. And you talked about dashboard.
Yeah.
You look at your dashboard. Well, I'm a huge advocate of a scorecard or a dashboard that flags the red. I love to celebrate the green.
Yeah,
I speed up when I see a yellow. I'm that guy. I'm that driver. I'm an aggressive driver. Light turns yellow, I'm on the gas, not the brake. And so I like the yellow, but I love the red.
Yeah.
Because it allows us to dig deeper into the why something is happening. And we use scorecards throughout every department and every business, whether it's the retail or the technology or the consulting business. We use dashboards to tell us a story. When did you start using dashboards in your business?
Well, in my retail business, when I bought our first shoe store back in 2010, even though it was 2010 and a lot of stuff was going on, the previous owners still had literally a 32 column ledger that they hand wrote their sales in off their cash register and stuff. It was very old school. So we started, that's just not the way I operate. So literally, within a month of me taking over the store, we got into a point of sale system, and a point of sale system is an awesome dashboard to start with, right? There's just so many, and it doesn't matter which one you use, but every point of sale system has a dashboard system. And if you're not looking at those kind of things, that's the first place to start. But for me, there's a lot more in a dashboard than just those numbers, your UPTs or IPTs, whatever you call them, and your average sale and some of that kind of stuff. From your side of things with the inventory management, there's all this inventory management side of the dashboard that we look at, and we want, our turns and all that other stuff and our freshness and different things like that, but there's these other things that we look at too. And we have on our dashboard things like open rate for our emails that we're sending out. We have, the actual dollar per email that's coming back in. We have a lot of things that are tagged into the dashboard of our email platform that we monitor and are looking at. We look at sort of our Google conversions and analytics. We pull in all sorts of different things. We pull in, I have a dashboard. We have a monthly manager meeting that we had yesterday with our retail team. And we do it every single month for a half day. We offsite and we just sit down and go through all this sort of stuff. So it's pretty relevant to me right now as we're chatting. And yesterday we literally have this scorecard. Everybody knows it's going to be part of our meeting. We go through the scorecard and we do the green, yellow, and red. We go through it. And part of that's the sales, part of it's our inventory, part of it's our marketing, part of it's our team, what's going on with our team, and how is our bench strength with our team so that we're rolling through it. Is everybody green, or are there a couple people yellow? Is there somebody who's red? Like we go through the team side of things. We go through systems and operations as well. And each of those things has its own dashboard. Some of the dashboards that we look at are daily, like our point of sale. And some of them are weekly when we have our weekly 1 hour sit down as a management team. Some of them are monthly when we get together for 4 hours every month. And, so we have different sort of segments of the dashboard that we've crafted and created and made our own over the last 10 years. And I expect that they'll continue to change depending on what's needed. And if we don't, like, one of the things we look at, one of the things on the dashboard is where's, our payables, for example, are we under, our goal is to be under 30 days. That's our goal. Right. You talked about failures. Well, a few years ago, we had a store failure. We had to close the store. And our payables were up around 90 days with some of our clients because we didn't have the money at the time, which is why we closed the store. But now we're back down under 30 days where we want to be. But we tracked that the whole time over the last few years, and we're tracking all these metrics. We know where we were, we know where we want to be, we know all of those sort of things. We had way too much inventory because we had 3 stores. Now we're down to 2 stores. And how do we work through all that stuff? That was all done through dashboarding and understanding where we were and where we wanted to be and the gap that was in between. And then we have the decisions that we're having in those meetings is, how are we going to close the gap?
The Wealthy Retailer podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. Learn more at retailbycrs.com.
Right. And I think one of the greatest benefits to a scorecard or a dashboard is it allows you to look down on the business. It allows you to remove a bit of emotion and allow numbers to just tell the truth. It is what it is. And, some people say that that's the scariest statement in the world. It is what it is. But the reality truly is, if you can look at a number and just accept the number for what it is, instead of trying to oppose the number, it is what it is. Now let's go look at how do we fix it. And one of the other things that I like to look at, because, I'm a decade into a scorecard, I can go back and find periods that were worse than today. No matter how bad today is, I can look back in my history and say, okay, well, hold on a second. This is 2000. Here's June 1st, 2010. probably not the best period to be in, in any business then. Maybe entrepreneurial coaching was okay back then, but we had some retail failures in 2010 as we worked through that, bit of recessionary period. And I was fortunate to be in Alberta. So we were a little bit delayed on the recession that came. We were still on the tail end of open your door and money fell in it, which was really where, Alberta lived for that 2007 through, the early part of 10.
Yeah.
And the dashboard or the scorecard allowed us to look down on the business and say, here's the one area that we can focus on today, not the 10 areas. And I like to break my scorecard down by department.
Yeah.
I do have, I'm a bit of a student of the EOS. I love, I implement EOS. I love EOS. I love it as a tool. I am not a pure implementer of EOS because it doesn't fit retail the way it fits other businesses.
Agreed.
But there are so many great tools, and the ability to compartmentalize our business and the way we do things are things that I learned from Gino Wickman and the Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Likewise.
That give us that great opportunity to look down on the business objectively, and as perhaps a board of directors say, here, this department's not performing the way it should. Let's really start to break it apart. And dashboards allow us to do that.
Yeah. We went through our 2-page dashboard with EOS yesterday. That's part of our monthly meeting, right? It's like, okay, we're going through strategy and, the first page and the second page. We digitize the second page for the most part now, but we still kind of go through it and have all those things. A big believer around all of those formats. And I think the big takeaway with that is that you have a system, whatever the system is, and that you're reviewing those things, and that you're, a great book that just came out right now from strategic coach, founder Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy is called The Gap in the Gain. And just released, I think, last month. And from that perspective, it's an old concept from Dan, but they've released this new book. And it's the gap in the gain. It's how far, like you said, you're looking back at how far you've come, as opposed to looking ahead and saying, oh my God, I'll never get there. Right. But using dashboards allows us the opportunity to go through that kind of stuff and say, hey, listen, we've done well. We've come so far. Yeah, we've got a couple of yellows. Yeah, we've got a red or two, but look at how much is green and where are we going? And we're going to get there.
Are you a believer that without red, we don't push ourselves?
To a certain degree. I think, it just depends on where you're at and where you're sitting. And I think we can create red if you need to be pushed. Because you can add something in there that you're saying, okay, we've got to, this is, it just depends on how you dashboard that stuff. Really. And how you manipulate, because you can always find things if you want to find them. And it depends on what the overall goals are because not everybody just has a goal of selling more and doing more. As entrepreneurs, that's the thing that I was telling you about as far as the coupling of our lives and our businesses. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, you know what? The business is doing really well. And for my personal dashboard as a leader, maybe I want to spend more time away. Maybe I want to take a vacation for 2 months this year. So I'm not going to put anything into red so that I actually have the ability to control my time. We're entrepreneurs. We got in business because we actually want to live the lives that we want to live and have our businesses give us that. So from that perspective, it just sort of depends on the season and what the goals are. And I think people get mired down in the frustration of just this everydayness of we need to sell more, we need to sell more, we need to sell more, and that's all there is to it. Well, not for everybody. And that's an interesting sort of aside, I guess, with regards to your entrepreneurial life. And
I think, one of the philosophies that I fall back on is that vision building, the direction that you're going has to satisfy you before it can ever satisfy the business. And, one of the mistakes I believe that are contained within EOS is that it is solely focused on the growth of the business, not the growth of the entrepreneur. And, I work in that entrepreneurial coaching world. And I always stop people when they get to business. Well, hold on a second. What do you want? Before we can plan where your business needs to go in the next 3, 5, 10 years, we have to know where you want to go.
Yeah.
Because the business has to feed that. You're the only one that feels, the true reward for the risk that we put out there as entrepreneurs. And I make light of entrepreneurs being $200 from living on the street, but that's how entrepreneurs live. That's how we thrive, is by that belief. And truthfully, we are not all in that position.
No.
In fact, the majority of us don't live in that position, but that doesn't mean that we don't act that way. Everything for us is a bit critical.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm in complete alignment with you there, Dan. And, every entrepreneur that I work with, that's where we start. We start with, what do you want out of your life? That's literally the starting point of everything. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Like some of them, right?
Yes.
Because they've been mired down for the last 5-10 years in this idea that we just have to grow the business. We just have to grow the business. And it's like, okay, well, let's pause and step for a second about the idea that the business is supposed to support your life and your legacy and the things that you want out of that. And if it doesn't, then are you in the right business?
Right.
And, because it's your business, but it's your life. And that's the difference between working. And that's why I love working with entrepreneurs, the owners, as opposed to the management team. I don't do a lot of work with management teams and stuff like that. I work with the entrepreneurs themselves, because then we get down to crafting what's the life they want, so that we can build the business underneath them to support that. And understanding what you truly want is a big thing that people haven't given enough thought to. And as we're at this sort of, typically the turn of a new year, we start thinking a little bit about that and then forget about it. A lot of people forget about it the rest of the year. But if you're at that sort of stage right now where you're thinking about that stuff, think about how your business supports your lifestyle, as opposed to just what you want to do with your business. I think that's a great point you brought up there, Dan.
Yeah. And I feel like, I'm very much like you. I work more with the owners than ever with the management team. There are some of my entrepreneurial leaders, I end up with their management team through consequence. But for the most part, I'm working with an owner, and sometimes have to pull them back away from the business to say, hold on a second. Yeah. It doesn't really matter what we're paying someone or how much we're paying someone, or, let's get away from that. Let's look at how this feeds our life. In fact, yesterday I'm in a conversation with leaders that are saying, Dan, we doubled our business last year. We doubled again this year. Wow. And you kept telling us there's going to be money, but there's still no money in the bank. And I'm like, hold on a second. Let's take a step back. Look at how your life has changed. Yeah. Look at the house you live in, the car you drive, the people that sit at your table. Your business didn't just double, your team doubled. And now you're supporting 20 other families with your business. And so we've got to sort of be less insular thinking and rise above and really look at, wow, what has the impact been, in the last 2 years or 3 years or 4 years as our lives have changed because of our business. So we are in alignment. So let's talk a little bit about simplifying entrepreneurship.
Yeah, cool.
So how did it come about? What pulled the trigger for you to say, I'm starting this practice. I'm going to create this practice. Yeah. And I'm going to go and share this message. What was it?
Well, it was part of what we just talked about, part of the life plan. Yeah. And the life plan for me is that I want to have basically a turnkey business operating so that I can, it's not as easy to travel from Canada now as when I laid this thing out, but it's like, hey, listen, if I want to go away for a month and, if I want to live in Costa Rica for January, my business will still run. And whether it's my Shootopia business or whether it's as long as I have internet, I can have these conversations like we're having now. It doesn't matter where I live. So that idea about, I'm 50, almost 51. And as I look at my next 25 years, I have no intention on retiring, like zero. But I do want to work because I want to work and where I want to work. Mm-hmm. So in the setting up of that over the next 5 to 10 years. It's just like, I want to lay this out, and things take time, Dan. They take time for this stuff to progress. And I know that, and I'm okay with that. So it's like, okay, I'm going to start this thing and get it going. And then I became a Business Made Simple certified coach, which is another thing on the side that I do, and different tools that I have and all that sort of stuff. So in alignment with the growth of that. And then it's like, okay, let's get out, and speaking is a big part of my future as well. And it's been harder to arrange stages these days.
Yes.
But all of these things and I'm in no rush. This is my 25-year future.
Right.
So if it doesn't happen this year, it's like, I got 24 more years to work on this.
Right.
I'm good with that. So, a lot of this kind of thing is how I've aligned it. So my feeling was that I really need to get Shootopia turnkey in its turnkey fashion, so that I have the accountabilities in place. My team is basically running the business, and I can. Before we hopped on, I just mentioned to you that in the last 7 months, we've had 6 of our best ever months out of 7.
Yeah, best
ever, which I'm thrilled about. And I have been less involved in the business in those last 6 months than I ever have before.
Okay, so just repeat that. Repeat that for people.
Yeah. So because I've set the systems up, and all of the things that I talk to and coach to, because I've set those up and have set them up for years now and working through that stuff, over the last 7 months, 6 of 7 have been our best ever months. And I have been less involved than ever as the leader of the business. I have my meetings, I do my things, I'm involved in decisions, major decisions, not minor ones.
Right.
I would say that realistically, in my retail operations, I put an average of 10 hours a week in.
Yeah, good for you. Retailers, you've got to listen to Pete here. This is, 7 of the best months ever, and I'm less consumed by the day to day, and I'm making bigger decisions, not little decisions. This is all about our ability to delegate. This is all about our ability to let go. And I will often say to retailers, just let them swim. It's not let them sink, it's let them swim. No. Leave them go. We hire people because they're better than we are. And every time we hire someone that we have to teach how to do their job, we've made a mistake. They need to teach us how to do it better. And that's got to be about good hiring. And clearly, you've made good hiring decisions. This doesn't mean that you're not there to coach people. Coaching is different. I lean on hockey a little bit. Connor McDavid's coach isn't teaching him how to play the game. Connor's teaching Tippett how to play the game. Dave's there to inspire him, to keep him motivated, to help him, to coach a system in place. But, that kid has the skill to outrun, whatever Dave has to offer. And that's the way that we need to look at it. We go hire superstars, and then, we inspire them to be better every day. We don't teach them how to be better. We inspire them to be better.
Yeah. I love that. And I mean, we're coming up to the Olympics again here.
We are.
And, there's not a coach in the Olympics that is, skiing down that hill in the actual race, or taking a face off in the game, or, any of the activities that are happening at the Olympics in another couple of months here in China are going to happen by the coach. The coach is there beside the person that's running the race. Mm-hmm. And that's what I look at my job as a leader, is to be there to help in the decisions and to work through some of what I call the uncontrollables. The control, once we've dealt with the uncontrollables, put them into the controllable bucket, then we systematize that stuff and assign accountability.
Assign accountability. I mean, the key to any level of success in any business is someone that's accountable. Accountability means that I own it. It's my number. I own it. And whether it's a number or a system or a process, it's someone owns that, whose eyes to look into, and they know how you're held accountable.
Yeah. And as business owners, Dan, are we accountable for the entire thing? Sure we are. It's our business, right? Mm-hmm. So if we need to dig back in, we're going to dig back in, and all of that stuff. But ultimately, when you talk about those numbers, it's like, I just need to know the accountability numbers from each of my accountability partners. And that's the dashboard that we had the conversation. Right. That's a dashboard. What's the accountability number for our accounting? What's the accountability number for our sales, our marketing, and what are those that are unique to your business? They're different for everybody. I mean, as retailers, we have certain ones, but even within your business, they're different within the business, but know them, understand who's accountable for them so that you can have the conversations around them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that's important to recognize. We're not always, and retailers, there are tried and true. There are age-old metrics that get used in retail. But I'm going to say the best metrics are the ones that we create today, not the ones that were used 25 years ago in retail. There's been an evolution. And to your point, we look at our dashboard differently today than we probably ever did. Yes, in inventory, we have metrics that have been used for a long time. But in the last 2 or 3 years, we've introduced new metrics into inventory that tell a better story. It's not just about gross margin return on investment anymore. Yeah. It's maybe a little bit more about cash margin return on investment. And how does our cash margin perform versus our gross margin? Yep. There are new metrics that can be looked at. And I think that to the degree we can analyze business differently and create new metrics, we move the needle faster.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So good on you. Pete, I have to tell you, man, I love this conversation. Probably could go on forever. Tell us a little bit more about Simplifying Entrepreneurship, how people find you, and absolutely, listeners, we will include Pete's white paper link in with this podcast, and of course in the weekly newsletter for CRS. But yeah, Pete, give us a little more. How do we find you?
Cool. So pretty simple. Just Google Simplifying Entrepreneurship and you'll find me. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram at Pete Mohr, PETEMOHR is the last, the correct spelling of the word more is what I'll say.
Yes.
Everybody always goes to MOORE. And I said, no, that's the incorrect one. It's MOHR is the correct one. You should know that. But, simplifyingentrepreneurship.com and, the Simplifying Entrepreneurship podcast, I mean, it's all there from that perspective, pretty easy to find. And, happy to, provide, we talked a little bit earlier about the one-page planner. I can provide you a link to that because it's a good thing for this time of year. The other thing I think, Dan, which would be interesting is it's about a 12-minute business assessment through Business Made Simple, and it's free. It takes you about 12 minutes to do, and it'll spit you back literally, and I'll include the link for this one too. It spits you back this awesome between 45 and 60 page document of it's the same sort of thing. It red flags and green flags, the different areas around your business, stuff you're doing supremely well and really feeling good about, and the other things that you may want to think about working on for the next year. So at this time of year, as we're planning all that stuff, it's like, okay, well, maybe I do need to work a little bit about this. Maybe I need to figure out some stuff and get some information and roll ahead with some of these things. And here are the things that I'm, like you said earlier in the podcast, really feeling good about. And it gives you both of that too.
Yeah, awesome. Listeners, please head over to Simplifying Entrepreneurship. Listen to the podcast. Pete's got a great podcast over there. Absolutely share this podcast with people you know. If you're not already subscribed to the weekly Canadian Retail Solutions newsletter, make sure you get subscribed over there. This podcast and every podcast is highlighted there. Pete's information, bio, white papers, and the links that we're talking about will be there. Pete, thank you so much. Really enjoyed the chat. Can't wait to chat again soon.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much, Dan. Looking forward to having you on the Simplifying Entrepreneurship podcast in the new year too.
Yes, I am looking forward to it. Retailers, have a great week and we'll catch with you next week.